None and Mim and Randy and Shanna from
Okay.
Ag New Bet.
Okay. Okay. Evening, guys. Hi, Mem, Randy, thank you. And Shannon. I don't think I've ever met you before, so.
Hi there.
welcome.
Can you hear
And this
me?
is a work session tonight. We have a couple members that are going to be late. They had a conflict with another function, but a couple more are going to join in here. We're going to join in here on Zoom, but I don't see them yet. So,
Just real quick, sorry, were you able to hear me?
yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. Sound check done. Thank you.
Can you hear us okay, Randy?
Yeah.
Mem?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have 4 of us present in the room and then also Assembly Member Donna Marsh, and I expect a couple more people. Got one more coming in, Sarah joining. So so tonight's a work session, and basically we're going to do 2 things. We're going to hear a presentation from very kindly the Sitka Community Land Trust. Mim and Randy were very gracious. I was over in Sitka a couple of weeks ago visiting friends, and they gave me quite the tour and quite the education and answered a lot of questions that I had about it. And so I thought it'd be instructive while we're on our process of figuring this all out, that if they've graciously agreed to give us a presentation. And from what I understand, Mim and Randy, you're going to kind of go through what you show first-time home buyers or people that are interested in the property. So with that, I'll just let you guys start.
Okay, I will go ahead and share my screen. I assume that you can see that okay?
Yeah, it's great. And Clerk Thompson also printed out handouts for all of us.
Oh,
So
good.
we have a handout of all the slides that there's.
That's fantastic. Good, excellent. Glad you guys were able to do that. Okay, so Randy and I are co-executive directors of the Sitka Community Land Trust. My time on this great body is almost done. I'm retiring from it. Not like I'm retiring, period, but you know, gonna do other things. So onward. So the advantage of home ownership through the Sitka Community Land Trust. Excellent pricing, excellent financing, excellent location, quality design and construction, opportunity to build equity, quality neighborhood, and pride of home ownership. So we're now going to talk about how the Community Land Trust works. And some of these things will come back around again to talk about again and from a different perspective. Your home is built after the income and SCLT qualified buyer has signed a real estate purchase agreement with the CLT. It takes about 8 months to build an SCLT home. The Sitka CLT owns and holds title to the land forever. You purchase and own the home and all improvements on the land at an affordable price, evidenced by deed. The CLT conveys to you an exclusive right to use the land via a 99-year renewable ground lease. The ground lease and the deed are recorded, enforceable, legally binding documents. Should you ever sell, the CLT asks you to leave the affordability it provided you with the home so it remains affordable to the next home buyer. Are there any questions before I go on to the next slide? Which we'll be talking, and we'll be talking about the resale formula on that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, just that last sentence where it says it asks you, is there, I guess, is it a requirement is, I guess?
It's in the lease.
Okay.
It's in the ground lease.
That's what I thought,
So yeah.
I just want to clarify that. Okay.
If you don't want to do it, then sorry,
Yeah.
We
Okay,
can't help you.
it is mandated. Good. Okay.
Yeah. But we are, you know, the home buyer has a choice. Either, yeah, okay, I'm okay with this, I'll buy this house, and I do understand that I need to make sure it remains affordable for the next home buyer. Was there another question there too? No? Okay.
Nope.
So how does the resale formula work? When you sell your home, you're entitled to get back your cash equity, your down payment, your earned equity, the loan principal you pay off by making your monthly mortgage payments, a 25% share of the increase in the value of your home as determined by market appraisal during the time you own it, or a loss if the housing market has dropped. And in Sitka, we chose, so there's different ways that you can find out what that value is. And we chose the appraisal method. So when your home is appraised, when you buy it, and it's appraised when there's a buyer. And so you're entitled to get back the difference between the appraisal at purchase and the appraisal at sale. And you could lose your down payment and your paid equity if the market drops, just like anybody that owns a house. If you sell it when the market's down, you might want to wait if you can. So any questions on this so far? And we'll go into way more detail on the resale formula in a future slide, as you may remember seeing. But any questions so far?
Yes, ma'am, this is Dave. I have one question. When you say appraisal, once the home is constructed, you have it appraised.
Yes,
And then you have another appraisal if and when you want to sell the home.
correct.
Okay.
All right. Any
I
other
have a
questions?
question, ma'am. This is
Go
Gary.
ahead.
So this first appraisal though, doesn't that first appraisal get done as per the building plans, the
Yeah.
blueprints?
Yes.
Because that is what the prospective buyer needs to take to the bank to get
Exactly.
financing.
You're correct.
So that's done before there's anything built ever.
Correct. It's we take the plans, the appraiser looks at the plans and says, this is what this is the fair market value. And then when the house is done and before the buyer gets a mortgage, it gets appraised again to make sure that that's an accurate assessment. So they actually get to go walk in the finished house and go look around and make sure that, yeah, we were correct. This is a good number. Take that to the bank.
That's pretty much standard practice
Yeah.
for building
Yeah.
any home.
Any other questions on this slide?
Ma'am, if I may interject,
Yeah.
that just the idea that the last homes we sold in the fall sold to buyers at $275,000. They were appraised at 330 to just give some sense of scale to what we're talking about here.
Thank you, Randy. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the benefits of living on the Sitka Community Land Trust land. And what we own right now is a neighborhood, and that's community land trusts can also own single lots in an existing neighborhood. It doesn't necessarily have to be a neighborhood. That's just happens to be what we decided to do here. So benefits: long-term security of home ownership, a 99-year renewable ground lease, the right to will your home to your heirs, reduced mortgage amount, equity accumulation, possibly no outside broker's fees when buying or selling your house. It depends on participating real estate agents. Whoops. Any questions on that slide so far? Okay. Now we'll talk about services to the homeowners, what the CLT provides. We help you understand what it means to live on CLT land. We help you to understand the ground lease and the resale formula. We help you find eligible buyers when you sell your home. We provide you with support after you buy your home. We assist you in the event of financial difficulties. We help you avoid foreclosure. And we provide information on how to maintain your home for optimum energy efficiency and cost effectiveness. And I just want to mention that in reference to avoiding foreclosure, CLT homeowners in the US have very low loan default rates because of the commitment of CLTs to work with the homeowners and their desire for them to succeed. And by having advanced and timely notification of any delinquency, the CLT can seek financial assistance for the resident, conduct financial counseling, or mediate a resolution that would avoid foreclosure. So staying connected to the community of homeowners really helps to make sure that they succeed as homeowners. Any questions on this slide?
I have another question.
Go
So have you had an instance where it just didn't work and the home went back to the bank?
We're too new. So I'm sure that's happened in the US. I mean, have been some defaults across the country, but it's just a very low rate.
So if they do, does the bank then have possession of that home and then have the opportunity to resell it, but they would not have to stick to your rules and only?
That's like the
5%?
worst case scenario. So there's a whole bunch of other steps that are a part of the lease agreement and with the mortgage company. And so like the CLT has first right of refusal kind of thing where you can try and get it caught up and get it back into its portfolio so it doesn't leave its CLT portfolio and try and find another home buyer. It would with the way housing is in our country and in Sitka and Southeast Alaska, the idea that there wouldn't be a qualified buyer that would snap that up before it ever went that far, I just can't imagine. I mean, there's always going to be people that are going to want to buy it and are qualified. But yeah, eventually, ultimately, yes, it could leave the portfolio. Because the bank needs to know that ultimately they're going to get their money back, or they're not going to be interested. Any other questions? Okay. So we are going to talk about the rights, roles, and responsibilities of CLT homeowners. They need to qualify for and obtain a mortgage, understand the ground lease agreement and agree to abide by its terms, understand the resale formula that gives you a limited return on the appreciated value of your home when you decide to sell, enjoy the privileges of using the land on which your home is built, membership in the homeowners association. Any other questions on this slide?
Yes, ma'am. I know when I was there, you talked that you hadn't quite exactly formed your homeowners association yet, but you plan on doing that in the future?
Oh, it was formed.
It
Yeah,
was
when
formed.
when you were here, yeah, it's been operating for, I think since last spring. I can't remember when we started it. It was a lengthy process getting it set up because there hadn't been one done for a community land trust in Alaska yet. So we worked with a CLT attorney in Montana and an attorney in Anchorage that deals with HOAs. And so between them and us, and we figured it out, and so we have an HOA for our neighborhood. Any other questions?
Sarah has one.
Is that just for, I guess, because all your homes are together, right, in one?
I didn't quite
subdivision?
catch that. They're what?
Are all of the homes that are owned under the, or on the land trust, are they
Yes.
in the same area in Sitka? They're not like interdispersed throughout the.
Correct. They're all in in this one neighborhood,
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Thank you.
which is why we had to have an HOA. Any other questions?
What do you charge for that above?
Well, it's up to the HOA, and they are charging $35 a month currently. And there's just 5 houses occupied right now. So rates will change as the neighborhood gets built out. There'll be 14 homes eventually. And
My general question was just about the turnover rate. So like you said, you had 5 homes that are empty right now, from my understanding.
no,
is it-
occupied.
Oh, occupied, sorry. And then, but my understanding is you have a total of 7 homes completed, correct?
No,
Oh.
no, we just have the 5 homes that have been built. We have a 6th one under construction with a home buyer anxiously awaiting to get his mortgage so he can move in, get it finished. And then we have another house that we're getting ready to sign the construction loan on. We have a buyer for that. So we have to have a buyer before we will build a house.
Okay.
We have to have a qualified buyer lined up that our construction lender approves of, so they know that their risk is low. Yeah.
And none of your current homeowners are, and they're all the original homeowners, the people that are
Yes.
currently in the houses. Okay.
Yes.
That was kind of my understanding.
Yeah, the first one was moved into in 2020. Okay. Any other questions for this slide? Okay. Now we're going to talk about the CLT ground lease, rights, responsibilities, and requirements. The responsibility to community. You have the right to use the land in a responsible way. So this is what we're telling the homeowner. Inheritance, you can will your home to your heirs. The ground lease fee, you are responsible for paying the $50 monthly ground lease fee. The home repair and reserve, the home repair and replacement reserve fee, you are responsible for paying the $25 monthly fee to be held by the Sitka Community Land Trust and used for capital maintenance of specific portions of the home. This fund stays with the house, not the homeowner, when they sell. Then there's the HOA fee for this particular neighborhood. You're responsible for paying an annual fee to the HOA. This rate will change as the number of homes increase in the neighborhood. With the current 5 homeowners, the monthly rate is $35 and is billed by the HOA. Property taxes, you are responsible for paying all property taxes on your home and the land it sits on. And that is something that a community land trust board decides, or they decide with the local governing body, whatever they can negotiate. So maybe they want to give the property owner a little bit of a break and not charge for the land, maybe just the house. But this is what you see here is what we worked out in Sitka. And home improvements, you may, with permission, make improvements to your home. And we want permission because we don't want people to make a change to the house that would end up having it be unaffordable for the next home buyer because it's increased the value so much. We need to be careful about that to make sure these are always affordable. Any questions on this slide?
Yeah, I have one question about the property tax on the land.
Mhm.
Since the homeowner doesn't actually own the land, do you have to have, then you go through an appraisal process on the land?
No.
So that,
No, it's the assessor. Well, I mean, it's, I'm trying to think what's in the appraisals. I think that they put a value on the land, even though it's not considered. But as far as there's not any separate appraisal done for the land. I think the assessor just kind of figures it out.
So the process is like, well, that's what happens here in Petersburg. You get appraised for your land, or the assessor determines the price for your land and then also for any of the improvements on that. So
Yeah.
that's
and-
how you guys do it?
Well, and I've asked the homeowners if they mind sharing what they paid for the house with the assessor. And so far they've been, the ones I've asked so far, they've been okay with that. So they're getting an accurate value.
So that's basically something our borough here would work with the land trust if we had one here, or if it's a
Mhm.
state trust, and hammer that out and say,
Yeah.
we're gonna do it just like all of our other properties where you'll get an assessment, it'll have land value and it'll have improvements, but you're
Mhm.
paying, and then they can say, but we're only gonna tax you on the improvements, or they'll say, we're gonna tax you on land and
Yeah.
improvement.
Whatever gets negotiated.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions on this slide? Okay, we're going to continue with more along this line. Loans, you may borrow money against your home, but the loan cannot be secured by the land and cannot be for more than the amount of equity that is yours. Primary residence, the homeowner shall occupy the home in compliance with the annual presence or absence requirements of the permanent fund dividend program, or no more than 90 days consecutive or 180 days total absence from Alaska. And this is an example of the ground lease being developed by Sitkins, taking a national model that was developed in 2011, but then tweaking it for what we want to do in our community here in Alaska. And so some way to make sure that the house is going to be occupied by the homeowner and not whatever, we have this requirement in there, and it works pretty well. It's also really easy to make sure that the homeowner is complying by having them send us a copy of their signature page, or their proof of their application to the PFD permanent fund division. So that's worked out well. Problem solving, any disputes that cannot be resolved will go to arbitration. Future affordability, you agree to share the affordability that's been created for you with the next home buyer for generations to come. Any questions on this slide? And we're going to talk about resale formula next. Okay. So let's say you purchased a home from the CLT that is worth $330,000 for a net price of $275,000. And I need to make my screen a little bigger so I can read this. So the 330 is the market value of the home you buy and the land you lease. And the 275, your purchase price is $55,000 below market value. Based on a conservative growth rate of 3% in home prices, let's say you go to sell your home 10 years from now, and the value of your home has gone up to $443,392. This is an increase of $113,392, and there's the math. The CLT intends for this home to not only be affordable to you, but to future owners as well. Housing values have a history of going up in this community. So after you've done that math, your 25% share of the increase in value is that 113,000 times 25%, which is $28,348. So that's your share of the equity in your home when you sell. The CLT or an income qualified buyer may purchase your home for what you originally paid, that $275, plus your equity share, that $28,000. So for a maximum sales price of $303,348. This is the price at which you can sell your home. A new limited income buyer can purchase this home for $303,348, even though it has a market value of $443,392. This price will make this home affordable to another family like yours. You also have the principal you have paid on your loan more equity, which is estimated to be around $43,000 plus an assumed $10,000 down payment based on a 30-year loan at 6.1% interest. I think that's my last bubble on there. One thing I just want to mention is considering this section here about the new limited income buyer. So we use the HUD area median income chart to determine who's income qualified for our program. And that changes every year. And it goes up every year. The average income and what it is for each, for, you know, 1-person household, 2-person, 3-person, et cetera. And so in 10 years, that will have jumped. Those income levels, allowable income levels, will also have gone up every year. And so even though today that 443,000 market value seems really high, and even the 303 does, compared to that 275, they're you know, there's still gonna be people qualified that are considered, you know, middle income or low income.
Mim, may I
Yeah.
jump in right there?
Shoot the questions. Yeah.
Wait, someone has a question?
Oh, I sounded like there was a question, or was that you,
It was
Randy?
just, is there a question?
No, not right now.
Okay, I would just like to emphasize a bit what Mim just said about what a person can reasonably expect to take away from CLT ownership across 10 years, let's say. So first, we're using a 3% appreciation to estimate these numbers, which is quite conservative. Probably over the years, something more like 5% is more like it has been. And certainly in Sitka over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been wildly more than that. But we use 3%. So you're going to take away your share of the increase in the appraised value, 25% of the increase in the appraised value, plus all the equity that you purchased with your down payment and your monthly payments. So in this, using the same numbers that Mim has used in this chart, because I ran these this morning, the person could expect to, there's some assumptions being made here about down payments and things, but our buyers have low down payments, like $5,000 is what, or something in range of that is what's typically done. But they could expect to take away between $60,000 and $75,000 for owning that home for 10 years at a 3% inflation of value. Okay, so the idea that we operate under here in Sitka is we'd like to have people turn them from being renters into homeowners, but the price jump from renting to buying a home on the open market here is too great. But they might be able to buy this $275,000 home, own it for a period of time, and then have enough of a down payment that they could get out on the open market and begin to capture all of that equity, which they will need when they get to be my age. So that's the idea. And there's just some sense of scale of expectations of earnings.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions? Okay.
Sorry, ma'am,
oh.
this is Shanna. I just wanted to, from Agnew Beck, I think you said this, but I missed it. What was the income restriction? If people under which income?
It's the HUD, area median income.
So under like 80% of that or? just-
We target anyone under 120% of AMI.
Gotcha. Great, thanks.
But they have to be able to afford a mortgage. So, you know, we can get down only so low without.
So more like, probably like 80 to 120 is probably. your-
We've actually been able to go lower.
Oh,
We've been
wow,
able
okay.
to get even a
Mhm.
little under 60%. So, yeah,
Great, thank you.
yeah. Good
What-
question.
Ma'am, what is the average income of the people who are qualified for your 5 homes so far? What's the range?
Oh, golly.
As low as 52,000 a year and as high as 93,000 a year, I believe is the ultimate range, with most of the people falling between those numbers. The person that earns, I believe I have the number right, the 52,000, we're building them an 825 square foot 2-bedroom home priced at $242,000. And it's a stretch to afford that. You know, it is. At the same time, our homes are, since interest rates have risen, this is less so, but in general, our homes have been, that the mortgage payments are at or below what you would expect to rent that house for on the market. Now at 6% interest, it's probably getting toward the upper end of the rental income market as a way of looking at what the monthly cost of these homes are to our buyers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You guys have been asking great questions tonight. So another way to look at the resale with the CLT buying and selling the house. So this is basically the same thing. It just shows the circle of ownership. So the homeowner purchases the house and leases the underlying land from the CLT. The homeowner lives in and maintains the house. The homeowner sells the house to the CLT for a formula determined price. The seller recovers the down payment and the principal paid on the mortgage. The seller also claims some of the house's appreciation in value. The CLT offers the house for sale to an income eligible buyer at below market price, and then you're back up to the top again. So the next few slides are going to be about the several different phases of the home buying process. This is on our website. It's also in our application form that's on our website that you can download. And so this is just kind of a repeat of what you would find on that. And sometimes these don't all happen in the same order that they're listed on here, but this captures everything. So we want the buyer to determine their eligibility, and I give them a link. And we want, so review CLT guidelines and income chart to determine if you're eligible for our program. If so, do the next step to determine if you can get a mortgage loan. So we want, want you to get a pre-approval letter from the lender. After submitting the IRLA, which is the Universal Residential Loan Application, to the lender, obtain a lender pre-approval letter based on tri-merge credit for a mortgage loan. So it's based on credit, income, savings, and debt. And we ask that that be submitted to us. Submit the letter and the IRLA to the CLT. Consultation with the CLT staff after you've determined that you're eligible and getting a loan looks promising. Sometimes we get a phone call before anything else happens, and that's fine. Orientation with the CLT staff member is done with a PowerPoint presentation on Zoom, which is what you're seeing here. The application process, the CLT application, complete and qualify to get on the waiting list, and before you can sign a sales contract. And that can take months because we don't want to sign a sales contract with you until we're just about ready to start building a house for you, because the prices change so much, and the sales contract is only good for a year. Application fee, a non-refundable $25 plus sales tax. Check or money order made payable to the Community Land Trust or SDLT, or a credit card payment. Agreeing to pay the credit card fee is appreciated. A photocopy of an approved form of identification for each adult household member 18 years old or older. We want the buyer to watch the Homes in Hands video on our website. This is a classic video about CLTs across the country. And I have other videos on the website besides that one. Home buyer education for borrowers who are unable to attend the 6-hour home choice class. Alaska Housing offers an online home study course at no cost called Finally Home. Download the certificate after successfully completing the course and submit it to CLT to register and access the test. Go to their website. And actually, Dawn Wesley from First Bank, she's a mortgage lender. I think she's officially a mortgage originator. Anyway, she just did a class here in Sitka, a 3-hour class that we also accept that as qualifying for homeowner education, home buyer education. Any questions on this slide? Okay, moving on. So phase 2, you'll need to do the following when you've decided to pursue buying a CLT home. Work with the staff to choose house design and lot location, especially for our neighborhood. Work with a real estate agent to sign a purchase and earnest money agreement with the CLT. Contact a lender to complete the ERLA if you haven't already done so. The CLT will provide an estimated sale price for the lender at this time. Complete application with the lender and submit a copy to the CLT. Credit report. There are 3 companies from which to choose to get this annual report. You can get these free reports without losing points in your score, and it gives you a link. So, and people can do this anytime. If they're trying to cure their credit, they can, check and see, well, gee, I wonder what my credit's like. And so we give them this link. Submit to the CLT a copy of your income tax return form 1040, page 1, for all household members aged 18 and over. Line up homeowners insurance, add the CLT to the policy as an additional insured before closing of the home sale. Any questions on this slide? Okay. Phase 3, for third phase and final phases, you're next on the list for a home. Review the Socini Shock Homeowners Association documents that will be sent to you. Meet with an attorney to go over the ground lease. 2 local attorneys provide this service. Loan estimate and or closing statement obtained from the lender and submit copy to the CLT. After the construction is done and it's time to close the deal, sign the CLT ground lease and many other documents at the title agency office, and the deed to the home is transferred to you after the sale is recorded. Congratulations, you are a homeowner. After you buy, work with the staff. After you're settled in your home, the CLT staff will be available to help your home purchase succeed over the coming years until you're ready to sell. When that time comes, we will help you then too. We'll make sure you have access to classes that will help you succeed during your time as a homeowner. Any questions on this side? Okay. These are our current income guidelines based on HUD. And this is also on our website.
May I interject on that slide?
Mhm.
There, it says there's a low end. We don't really care if, like, for instance, someone was making less than 80% of the area median income, but had been working hard and saved a lot of money, can qualify for a loan. We don't care. They can, if they can get a mortgage for a house, then it's good by us. The big thing is the top end. We don't want to be serving people over 120% of area median income, because we would believe them to have a reasonable chance to be able to buy a house on the open market.
And even if they do have a decent amount saved up, it's probably not enough to get a house on the open market. They still are not able to afford to buy a house on the market. And so we offer this other opportunity for them. Any questions on the income guidelines? Okay, this is the community neighborhood. This area is what is currently built. This one here is under construction. This one here is waiting for somebody that wants a very small house. And we'll look at our house designs next. And then this is the other parcel, two more parcels of land that we got from the city assembly this past summer, in 22. And so this is where the 7 more homes will go. And this is an area for some sheds or boat parking or whatever. This is parking here. There's some parking in this area, and then there's more parking over here. And then there's this central path that goes through to walk on. Mailboxes are in this central area. And we're hoping to have some green space here for the homeowners to have a play area, picnic table, that kind of thing. And we're hoping to have a path going up the hillside here that goes up to Mill Street, which goes on up to the Keet Gushaheen School, elementary school. And then this part here is some land that is not a part of the HOA, but it's owned by the Community Land Trust. And we're hoping we will be building a fourplex there that will provide rental income. And we're thinking that it would be part fair market rents and the other part subsidized rents. Any questions about the neighborhood before I go on to show you what our houses look like?
What is the acreage that we're looking at right here for all 3 lots?
The total acreage is a little bit less than 3 acres. It's about 3 1/4 acres.
But less than 2 acres of it is buildable land,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of steep ground there
You can
that's
see
not.
there's
yeah.
some pretty steep places there, and that continues on back in here too. Any other questions?
So how big are those individual lots?
They're kind of in the range of 3,000 something to 4,000 square feet.
So what are they, like, width and depth on the ones you already have? The 3 on the one side of the street there. Yeah, those 3.
Those.
I can't read it on here.
Yeah. Let's see. I happen to have that right here. So so this one here is sorry, switch glasses time. About 3,900 square feet. That's 3,900. This one is 3,780. 3,607. In the front here, let's go to the smallest one. That one is 1,306. No, excuse me. That's the buildable. the lot size is 2,742 square feet.
So on average, they're in range of 50 feet by 60 feet, just to give you a sense of the size
Yeah.
of the sides.
These two are the smallest ones. They're under 3,000 square feet. All the other ones are over 3,000. And none of these on this side are at 4,000, but this, so lot 4 is over 4,000 square feet, I think, and this one is too. So these two are the largest ones.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay. So all of our house designs, and we have 7 of them, have been designed by one of our board members, Jill Hirai. If you see one that looks like this, it means we haven't built it yet. So we're hoping that somebody will want this one for that smallest parcel, but nobody has said, I want it, I want it. So there's that one. This is the first one that we built. This one is being built. This is the one that's under, right? Randy, is this under construction? Is this Bobby's? Or is his, no, his, oh, this is his, Alder. And then, so this one is like that first one, the green one, that one, except that it has another bump out room on it. So same floor plan, except for this was added on. And that's this right here. So they're very basic, standard homes, but nicely designed and good windows and in our rainy climate. And then this one here is these are the newest houses. There were 2 of them built. Next, you can see the other one over here. So this has been a good one too. It has 2 full baths. Downstairs it has the just a shower. Upstairs has the bathtub and shower. But a 3-bedroom. So it's pretty good layout. And then this is the what we're hoping to be building for one of the families. And that's it.
Mim, if it makes sense, let me say really briefly about the kinds of houses that we are building. That since we are building in a permanently affordable model, we are trying to build very durable buildings. And so we keep the quality of the windows and doors and cabinets and interior doors at a mid-range to higher quality. Same with floor coverings, because the places the human touches the building is what wears out first, and we want them to last well. We put in good quality appliances. They're fully equipped when we get done. They're energy efficient, 6-star energy rated, and they're built with a rain shield wall on the outside. So we're trying to produce a high quality product that really will withstand the test of time pretty well.
Are there any questions about any of the slides that you want me to go back to before I close this out? And we can always come back to any of them.
If I may, Mim,
Yeah.
You are a city trying to determine if the Community Land Trust is a model of ownership to provide affordable housing in your community. And I want to stress some things maybe that we've learned from that. So we got free land from the city. We got a Rasmussen grant, which subsidized the dirt work and utility installations to the tune of about $30,000 per house. And that has enabled that house that we keep talking about to be $275,000. But that was at 3% interest. And so now, as interest rates have risen, the construction loan costs have risen sharply, and the mortgage is going to be higher. So it gets harder and harder to produce affordable homes under those circumstances. One of the ways, the primary way that the land trust, the nonprofit that operates the Sitka Community Land Trust, and you're looking at its staff right now, Mim and I each kind of have quarter-time jobs. And we've been at this, Mim 13 years and me 10. And that's what's not sustainable. It takes a lot of work, and it's going to take more money in to continue the operation of a land trust. So we take a development fee when we build a house. If it costs $250,000 to build the house, that's the builder's price to us. We mark it up 10%, $25,000. We take that money to operate the nonprofit. Well, we hate that. We don't want to mark houses up. We want to mark them down, right? So if Petersburg were starting from scratch and doing this, I would urge you to set aside money to operate the nonprofit, and don't take a big development fee, because it's counterproductive, right? We have not yet tried to convince our assembly to pay for the operations of the nonprofit. We're having a whack at that, and it may well be futile, but we're going to try, because we don't want to mark the prices up, right? So here's in summary, free land with utilities right there, roads and utilities in, even a gravel pad. Then you can build a house on it. And then if you don't have to take development fees, you have a good shot of producing a home that someone can buy for $1,500 to $2,000 a month. $2,000 being kind of the upper end, something on the order of a $320,000 house would cost something on the order of $2,000 a month. Payment, insurance, taxes, and whatever interest, PITI. So that's my pitch. As you consider doing this, don't think that you can just give free land and it runs in perpetuity. It will cost more than that. But affordable housing, affordable home ownership, it solves a powerful economic problem and has great impact on a powerful demographic issue. Do you want young families to be able to live in Petersburg and raise their families there and put their kids in school? Because if so, you all have to put your heads together and find out a way to do that. Mim and I have been at this, well, collectively 23 years, right? And we believe more firmly and more clearly in the model than we did when we started. But it takes more commitment to the model than we currently have in our little community. So as you start thinking about it that way. I believe that at the beginning, we thought all it took, I thought all it was going to take is free land and we'd take it from there. It's not true. You won't be able to maintain real affordability by doing that. But here's the thing. Let's say that with each house, the city of Petersburg put in, I don't know, $30,000 of subsidy towards staff and utilities and something like that. When that house sells to the next buyer, that subsidy is passed on. It is preserved. So it's not a one-off. Every buyer from then on benefits from the low initial cost, because the cost of that house is what we use to determine how much money is given to at resale. So keeping that initial price really low by strong subsidy keeps it affordable over time, but you only have to do it one time. Most affordable housing that I know of consists of subsidized loans. And that's where we, the taxpayer, pays a part of that monthly payment for that buyer every single month for as long as they're buying it, right? So if they're getting a great USDA rural development loan, and then that it's a reduced percentage, a reduced interest rate is what's making that affordable. And where's that money coming from? But we're paying it. So the community land trust model, all of that initial subsidy goes in at construction and is preserved across time. So you don't have to keep re-upping. It becomes a house on the open market after that. You can lose money on that. You have to replace a roof on that. Nobody's helping you with that. You're just a homeowner. So initial subsidy matters. And I would urge you to think about supporting whoever does this work, whether it's a city employee or a nonprofit. Find a way to subsidize that work.
The other cost that that is real, that needs to be considered, and I bring this up because of John Whidden, who is from Kodiak. He was on the Trust Alaska call today, and they're working with Michael Brown, the consultant, and creating a community land trust in Kodiak. And what they're looking at is the high cost of developing the land. So Kodiak has land available, but how do you cover the cost of developing it, getting it ready to put a house on there?
That's right.
And so we were helped by the Rasmussen Foundation to do these 3 parcels that we have. And we asked them, so well, we're hoping to get more land from the city. Will we be able to get help from you to develop that land? And we cannot count on them to do that. They don't want to be seen as the bucket that pours money into developing land like that again and again and again. So, hopefully they'll help each community get started, but then, we're hoping that the city, they're just starting the process of doing a study on the land that they have available, what land should be used for housing, what type of housing, who will develop the land, how much they want some of it to go to the community land trust. At least that's what we're hearing. But then a lot of it will be sold. And so to help pay for the development costs, I believe. So I think the idea is that I'm hoping that we would get that help from the city to get the land ready to build on, and we just get the house built. That's what we're hoping for. And that's what is going to work. Because if the CLT has to pay for developing the land, it's no longer an affordable project.
Good point.
One question, how much, what is your overhead cost in salaries that you guys are having to pay?
The total salary burden for Mim and I is $50,000 a year.
It's actually been less than that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We're like quarter-time people.
Yeah.
And that's.
We don't make much. I'm not really retiring. I can't afford to.
And it has to turn into an operation where there's a professional staff, technically competent professional staff doing the work. When Mim and I started, we sort of believed that all it really took was good intentions, and so we've learned a great deal across our time, but we learned that some of that stuff the hard way.
Yeah.
And
and that's really common in the development of CLTs across the country.
Yeah.
There are, and that's why there's national conferences and regional conferences, and you can go get training. That's why there's the Home Futures Institute that's happening this year, to get people trained, to help start up CLTs.
And there's a lot of different sort of technical skills involved in doing this. So Mim became a realtor in order to support this work, right? And then there is, certainly the site development work, kind of like what any building developer would do, that whole set of skills. And gosh, it's a complicated legal mechanism that takes some work and some sustaining. So it takes real time by a technically competent staff to make it work. And it's the best idea I've ever seen, because the fundamental problem in Sitka's economies, probably in Petersburg, I don't know for sure, but certainly in America, is that land and home values have appreciated far more rapidly than incomes. So it's harder and harder for younger people to buy a home, right? Y'all know that, but the problem is profound. And so this model makes it so that nobody makes a killing on the house. The initial subsidy of the development costs and the whatever you put into it is carried on year after year after year. And 10 years later, someone at the same level of income, let's say they were at 80% of the area median income when they bought the house. Now, 10 years later, somebody at 80% of AMI can still buy the house. I do not think there's any other permanently affordable model. So you just start working on it and you create a stock of small homes that beginning buyers, young families can buy. And then after 8 or 10 years, they sell, and maybe they've then been able to capture enough to get out on the open market. That's the hope, right? So the model is really elegant, and we certainly didn't think of it. We've adapted it a little bit to our circumstances, but I sort of tend to proselytize about it because I think it fits the American circumstance, and like no other model that I am aware of.
People can also bequeath a home to a community land trust. So that's something that could be encouraged in the community.
I have a question. So you guys modeled Sitka's after Montana or other communities and tweaked it. If Petersburg was to do that and use Sitka's model, for instance, what do you think? And I know that once I had heard that Rasmussen Foundation also sometimes give grants to hire for legal help and whatnot, but what costs do you think, just a rough idea, would it cost for us to get, all the legal jargon put down
Right.
into a CLT?
I
That
think,
initial cost of just the administration part of it.
yeah, that we had a tier 1 grant to hire Michael Brown back in the day. And I think we also had a small grant from Alaska Community Foundation. And I don't remember exactly how much that was. I think it was somewhere around 20,000 or something to get that work done. And it took about 18 months of, this was before Zoom. There was, we used the UAS conference room, and he visited our community just a couple of times. Nowadays, that's nothing, it's way better system now for working from a distance with a consultant. So I had tried, I had attended a few conferences trying to learn how to start a community land trust, and the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know, and just became overwhelmed by what it was going to take, and would it even be done right. And in the meantime, I had met Michael Brown, and so we fortunately were able to hire him. And so, yeah, having a consultant work with you means that, I mean, they help with the business plan, with going page by page through the ground lease, bylaws, perhaps help with getting a nonprofit started if that's the route you want to go. For us, we already had one, the Sitka Community Development Corporation. So we didn't have to worry about that. What else, Randy? Policies.
I believe
Even
that
that
we met.
presentation that I just gave you the guts of that were from Michael Brown. He gave me some slides and I just, used that, and kind of over the years, I've worked on what we have.
And Michael was excellent to work with. He keeps trying to get out of it, the work, and retire
He keeps
fully.
trying to retire.
But so I would
I've heard
say
he
that
wants
if
to
you had,
work 1 day a week. So
I think that if you had $30,000, you could establish the land trust. The issue of the nonprofit is another thing that ours operates under a nonprofit. It wouldn't have to be that, I suppose. The city could run a land trust, but so there's a bunch of work. I think we met 19 times to establish the land trust. A group of us worked on it. There's just a lot of decisions to be made, and but it's not a tremendously expensive process. Just some commitment is needed.
yeah, it's interesting work being on the steering committee, getting that started.
Well, this has been very, very informative, and I don't know if anybody else has any more questions.
I just had one.
Yeah.
One more. Do you have any minimum amount of time the owner has to be in the home before they can sell it?
No,
And we don't allow them to rent it out. They have to occupy. They can't do short-term rentals. And there's also clauses, though, like for active military people, if they were called away, there's ways to work through that. But no, you buy the house and you can sell it as soon as you need to sell it.
And
we also,
I read.
we also don't require you to stay low income. So like if your income shot up, you wouldn't have to sell the house, move out. You get to
Yeah.
stay there and be successful in life.
And I read somewhere on one of your papers, one of the qualification papers, I think, that people have to fill out, that they can't already own other property
Right.
or other homes.
There's a 3-year, so like, it has to have been 3 years since you owned any property.
So I have a question. What's Agnew Beck Consulting, and what's your role in this, if you don't mind me asking?
I can answer. We've hired them to do a housing needs assessment.
Right.
And they're gonna expand, this is the first time we've met with them. And they're gonna, you guys are welcome to stay online if you want to listen. They're gonna tell us what they're gonna do and how they're
that's
gonna do it.
awesome.
Well,
Yeah,
I'd like to hear that if you don't mind.
yeah, I
Yeah,
would
sure.
too. And I've been thinking about Agnew Beck for doing a feasibility study for the Trust Alaska. And we're thinking about changing the name to Alaska CLT, by the way.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
From our
and,
meeting.
I think
I'm
when
already-
we talked when you were helping us think about the land for the
homeless
tiny
coalition?
homes. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah. Nice to
Good
see
work
you
on
again.
that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So once again, I want to thank you guys. I mean, this has been great help. Thank you again. If anybody any of you guys get over to Sitka, it's really worth taking a look at it. They're beautiful homes. I mean, they're definitely not, they're well built. Gary, I think if you had a chance to get over there, Gary's a local builder here. He builds most of the houses here in town, so he knows more about that than most other people do. I was very impressed with the project, and it's obvious the amount of commitment and work that you guys have put into this. It's impressive. And
Thank you.
yeah, I want to
Thank
thank you. And being in and out of Sitka for over 40 years, I'm very aware of the lack of affordable housing in that community.
Yeah.
So,
We'd be happy to show any of you the neighborhood and anything else you'd like.
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate it. And I guess with that, unless we have any more questions, I'm sure we will in the future. You guys want to introduce yourselves? You want us to introduce ourselves first? How do you want to do this?
Yeah, why don't we just introduce ourselves, and then I'd love to hear who's in the room, and maybe also hear a little bit about what you're hoping to learn through the housing needs assessment. If people want to go around and say that, that would be super helpful. But before we ask you to do that, I'll just introduce myself for those who I haven't met. I'm Shanna Zuspan. I'm one of the 5 principal co-owners at Agnew Beck. 4 of us are based here in Anchorage, myself included. And we have 1 owner in our Boise, Idaho office. I think a lot of you have worked closely with Shelley Wade and Molly Milius on the comprehensive plan, maybe around the 2016, 2017 time period. And it sounded like housing was an issue that came out of that plan. You had an opportunity to survey the community and talk about housing and set up some recommendations. And so since then, we had a chance to meet with Steve and with Liz, and I think it was August of last year, with the idea that it was time to kind of really dig a little bit deeper into housing and understand where the needs are. It's really cool to hear the presentation from the Land Trust because you're kind of getting both sides of the equation, a deeper dive into what the data is saying for Petersburg in terms of where the housing demand is. And then, on the other end is the specific recommendations and strategies to help make housing materialize. And so, as you could hear from that presentation, it's all very detailed housing, real estate type of work, but all of those solutions are most likely necessary to make change in housing. So anyway, my background is I do a lot of the housing work at Agnew Beck. I have a background in community development and urban planning. Grew up in Alaska, spent about 10 years working in housing and redevelopment in California. I've been back here about 12 years. And haven't been in Petersburg, but have flown through and spent some time in the Southeast on different projects. So excited to participate. And maybe I'll let Katie introduce herself.
Thanks, Jenna. Hi, everyone. It's Katie Skovic, Senior Associate at Agnew Beck, also based here in Anchorage. I've been on for a little over a year. Before coming to Agnew Beck, I worked at Cook Inlet Housing Authority here in Anchorage, and then in the mayor's office here, so in local government for a while. I think across jobs have kind of circled housing or worked pretty directly on it. We've at Agnew Beck just this last year worked on a housing needs assessment for Copper River Basin. We're working on one now for Aleutian Housing Authority, so out in the Aleutian Islands. I'll be the project manager on here, so sort of the main point of contact for communication and hopefully keeping the trains running. So yeah, always excited to be working on housing projects, and like Shanna said, excited to hear more from you all what you're looking for. So I think so much of what we're going to dig into in terms of data and survey will hopefully reflect those big picture goals and then give you the information you need to respond to them. So excited to be here.
Yeah, so I can in a minute share just one slide I have of our scope, which is real. There's not a lot of detail at this point, but we can share what we know we are focused on at this point. But I would love to hear from folks if you want to just say who you are and kind of, again, what you're hoping to get out of the needs assessment and maybe what you think the biggest housing issue is in Petersburg. Is that too much to ask? I don't know how much time we have, but that would be really great to hear.
Those are big questions, but well, let's make a stab at it.
Okay.
Jalen, you get to go first.
My name is Jalen Pomeranke. I'm a real estate agent here in Petersburg, and I'm also the housing director at the Petersburg Indian Association. I'm a big supporter of the housing needs assessment. I'm really excited to see kind of what options we have for further development for specific areas. It's hard to pinpoint for me whether I'm more excited to look at like low income or private market, but anything, just any solution pretty much. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jillian.
I'm Sarah Holmgren. I'm also a real estate agent, own a brokerage here in Petersburg, and just having watched what's gone on when I moved back 22 years ago, and housing was incredibly difficult to find, and we just by sheer luck got a house. So that hasn't changed in 22 years. And I would say we were middle to upper income then. But as an agent, I see the shortage of housing for middle income to lower income, and then recently became more aware of the more desperate side of housing that's needed in the Section 8 world of where it's financial difficulties or just those that are having housing insecurity, been kind of clueless about that. So I'm just hoping the housing needs assessment covers a gamut of socioeconomic backgrounds, so we can get a bigger picture of what's going on in our community.
Hi, my name is Gary Albaugh. I'm a builder here in Petersburg, been building custom residential homes for about 33 years. So I've seen, we've always built fairly high quality homes, but we'll build them for whatever suits their needs. But I'm real curious to see through your assessment, what really would help us get young couples or first-time buyers, single mothers or single fishermen, whatever. What's our best way to get them here and living here and working here? Because we have a huge shortage of workers in every part of our economy right now. I can't find workers. Our stores, there's 30 jobs available every week in the paper. There's people not moving here because there's no place to stay. So what's our most effective way to address that? Do we need more rentals? Do we need, just more affordable housing? And so I'm really curious to see what you guys come up with.
My name's Larry Hofstad, and I've been in this situation where housing's been an issue with me, due to medical issues with me, my wife with MS. Went from fishing to all of a sudden, basically, no income. I've got the housing stability grant right now through Alaska Housing, helping me out while I'm healing up from surgery. I'm hoping that, this housing needs assessment will open up a lot more in the lines of grants for possibly more building, and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of people here in Petersburg that are in the same boat as I am. Actually, there's a lot of people that need it a lot worse. I mean, I do feel for the people that are on tough times. However, it's the children of those people that are on tough times that don't get, the average, needs, but due to mental stress, mental health issues, I mean, all this stuff that is combined. And I'm hoping that this will unlock some money to help, people in those type of situations. So that's it.
Anna?
Thank you. My name is Donna Marsh. I am here, just not part of the official housing task force, but looking for some solutions. We've got a great place to live. What are the missing pieces that would allow this town to grow and the next generation to want to stay here?
Great.
I'm Dave Kensinger, and I participated in the community development plan in 2016, so I'm familiar with your guys' work and everything. And I was really impressed with the product that we got out of that, and particularly the component on housing. I'm also currently on the assembly, and we had talked about earlier this summer, we're blessed with a lot of land here in town. We do not have a problem like a lot of communities do. We have thousands of acres, beautiful land, it's flat. The only problem is it's got 12 feet of muskeg on it, which means that the development cost of that property is quite expensive. So we need to look at some pretty creative ways to develop the land if that's the route we go. We got some pretty eye-popping estimates back on. We just thought, well, let's put in another subdivision like we did when Clinton and Haida actually put it in. I don't know, what was it, 20 years ago now? Yeah, and the development costs at that time, as far as I can figure, what I've heard has been about 30,000 an acre. Now, 20 years later, it's up to $120,000 and a lot, excuse me, not an acre. So we're looking at really high development costs. So I guess my question that I'd like to see answered is, what do we need in terms of housing stock? I mean, I can drive around the community and I see a lot of our trailers, I guess is the correct term for them, or mobile homes that aren't going to be here in another 10 to 20 years. I'm surprised as many of them made it through the last winter as they did. We had several that actually collapsed. So I see we have a real aging housing stock, and the only houses that are really getting built in town are upper end houses. That part of the market seems to be doing quite well, and there's quite a few, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, but most of those houses are over $500,000 houses when you build them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they're, which is out of the range of most people that work here in town, and that's our problem. So I guess the thing that would help me would be, okay, what as a borough can we do to, what are some of the things that we can do to address this problem? Do we need to make more single family lots available? Do we need to concentrate on rentals? Do we need to concentrate on multifamily housing? What are the avenues that you guys, using your expertise in other communities around the state, what are the organizations that we can partner with? We have been quite successful in the past partnering with Clinton and Haida, but just, we need answers to those questions, and that's why we hired you, to give us some direction. So it's a pretty broad mandate. I guess the other question I would like to ask is, and I know this might be unfair, do you have any idea the timeline that you're looking at?
Sure. Great, that's super helpful. Is there anybody else in the room that we missed?
Unfortunately, we have quite a few members that had a conflict tonight. We have
Okay,
3 other members, but that's it for that's in the room, unless Clerk Thompson wants to chime in. No.
cool. Well, let me try to answer some of those questions and just share kind of what we have planned, but it's, definitely room for adjustments. We're really at the beginning. I think we signed the contract a week ago, I want to say. I think I can share my screen here. Okay, can you guys see that slide all right? Make it a little bigger. So these are our 5 tasks for our work. And the ones to highlight, I think first is this quantitative analysis and housing need forecast. And I think you had a version of this done during the comp plan. I think Megan Holton was the analyst that did the work. And so what we understand is there has been some changes in the data since the last census in terms of maybe some of the vacancy rates getting in the market getting tighter, more population growth. And so really, we want to update that forecast, and we usually take a look at a few different factors. One is how much population growth expected in the future, how much overcrowding you have, how much using other data points besides going and doing a detailed survey of the physical condition of all the housing, but we need other data to kind of give us a proxy of how much rehab. And then that just gives a better planning number of how much housing is needed overall. But that's just really, I think, the tip of the iceberg as in terms of trying to answer some of the questions that you all are raising. And so at this point, we have a survey in mind and then some stakeholder interviews. Maybe what's not really showing on this that we can include is to make sure to look at some case studies and some examples of what other communities are doing, which is kind of what would be part of our thinking as well. But really that survey will want to ask the community members really questions around two categories. One is, what are your biggest needs for housing? And the questions, we have several surveys we can build from, but the questions can get pretty specific in terms of the size of the unit, whether they want it to be rental, owner occupied, depending on the stage of life, kind of whether they're looking to downsize or family housing. Then the other bucket of questions is kind of more around the community needs. So stepping aside from your own specific situation, where do you think the need is in the community? Is it more for elders, for new families, for people to move back in order to ensure job growth? And we have to do some kind of survey and kind of marry that with that quantitative data, because the quantitative data really only looks at past trends. And what we're really trying to do is help understand kind of where that need is going forward. So, the third way of connecting those dots is really having some individual stakeholder interviews. I know we're not for this scope, we're not planning a big community meeting in Petersburg on housing needs. We wanted to kind of have some individual interviews with stakeholders, and maybe some of the folks in the room or that group, and, share kind of what we're learning through the survey and what we're learning through the data analysis, and help identify where those priority areas are. And then the recommendations, can fall from that in terms of, if we are seeing a lot of emphasis on elder housing or housing for folks who are new to the job market, there's, different strategies for each of those different demographic groups. I think what often happens is that you find a need along all of the categories, right? It's typically not one or the other that really shines out. As people retire, they are looking for housing that they can afford, or maybe they're looking to stay in their own housing, their existing units, or they want their adult children to be able to move back. People who are single income earners are looking for affordable housing. But there's often, through the survey and through the interview process, certain aspects that kind of rise to the top. And for example, like in the Aleutians right now, it's the first region that we've seen a strong tendency in the survey for there to be a focus on rehab. We haven't really seen that rise to the top in other areas. There's just not as much population growth in that area, so the rehab is really important. I think, on the note of what the recommendations can look like, I just wanted to share this graphic that we often use in our housing work. And it sort of gets at the point I was just making about a lot of times you find that you have need across all categories of folks, right? So the orange is that real affordable low income. It can be anything from rentals to housing for people experiencing homelessness through shelters. And that's often requires state or federal funds to make those projects come together. The middle to moderate income has some state and federal funds available, but also rentals and for sale. That's your first time home buyers. That turquoise piece might be the land trust target market more. It's at 80 to 120% of AMI. And then the red category is the upper middle income, where maybe it's making land available for more private market rate housing, and there's less need for direct public investment. So we like to kind of see wherever we can, and all the data is available in each of these different categories, but we like to parse it into kind of those three general categories, and then think about what the different strategies could be, and where Petersburg could fit in. So anyway, I just wanted to share that this is not tailored for your community, but it's an example of a graphic that we might use, or a version of a graphic we might use. Timeline wise, I think our contract right now says the end of September. But I think, given just that we just got started, we'll want to sit down with staff and really kind of work through our work plan and get you a better sense of timing. But that's kind of loosely our target date. Any thoughts or observations based on what I shared?
So you will probably be working, of course, with Liz Cabrera, our economic development. She'll be your probably your go-to person. And then this committee, there's quite a few stakeholders or people here that know quite a bit about the community. So you can definitely reach out to any of us and we'll provide you a list of the other members that aren't here. And they all have different areas of knowledge of what's going on in town. So.
Yeah, that would be great. Definitely around the stakeholder interviews and getting the survey out to the right people. It would be great to get everybody's thoughts on those specifics.
And what have you found is the most effective way to get a high response rate on a survey in other communities?
I mean, I guess it really depends, right? In the Aleutians right now, they're going almost door to door in some of their communities. I don't think that's maybe necessary in Petersburg. I think it seemed like from talking to Shelley, you had a fairly good response rate during the comp plan. But I think, if you all in this room have a list of organizations that we can push the survey out to, and making sure that we're using your knowledge of the different stakeholder groups, and then maybe if you're also willing to even send some of those emails, that can make a big difference.
I think a good contact point for you would be Jay Lynn, and then also Chad Wright at PIA and Clint at HIDA.
Yep.
Because they've been involved in developing housing in the past year and are continuing to do so. So.
Yeah, definitely. So just to be clear, like there'll be probably 2 information requests. One is, organizations and email listservs to get the broad community survey link out so that people can answer that survey. And then the other is a list of people that would be good to interview to understand kind of where the housing needs are and what the different options and solutions are. But we'll work with staff to get you an organized request for that information.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With a project like Petersburg's, on average, how much time do you or your people actually have feet on the ground in Petersburg?
Yeah, great question. This, I think we tried to pull back a little bit on this scope, so we don't have any plans right now for a visit. In Aleutians, Katie you went to Sandpoint. When we did a needs assessment in Tlingit-Haida, we went to 3 other communities. It really can just depend on what you need and what you feel like is critical at this phase. I mean, I think from what I've heard from folks is that right now you're mostly interested in an update on the data and a better sense on what the need is for housing from the community. So a more detailed focused survey on housing. So it's feeling like a lot of community outreach on the ground isn't really necessary right now anyway. But, that could change, and, we've seen it'd be really critical when you're either wanting to have sort of a broad conversation about priorities in the community of where housing needs should be and where solutions should be focused, or when you're trying to work sort of collectively with other partners to come up with an action plan, right? And that might be after the housing needs assessment is in place, where maybe you're sitting down with the borough, PIA, Tlingit-Haida, maybe other entities, and trying to really come up with who's doing what next. We've seen some of that work. We have an office in Truckee, California that leads a lot of the action planning work, where they're maybe in person helping to bring those solutions together. But, I think you heard from the last speaker too, there's a lot more that can be done virtually these days too. So I guess there's not one answer to your question, if that's helpful. But.
Well, I suppose you'll be depending a lot on, the people that are already here to help with your work, from the sounds of it. It's just might be hard to get an idea of, we say, okay, we've already got 45 trailers up here and that's great for low income. But unless you look at them, you don't realize that, 5 of those are going to fall down next year.
Mhm.
So you're going to have to get that kind of good info either from somebody here or see it. So
Mhm.
want to make sure that kind of stuff doesn't get overlooked.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with that, being in my situation. There's places that, if there wasn't a real big needs assessment, there's places that people are renting that wouldn't pass the
Mhm.
whatever test. I mean, I can name a list of stuff that goes on, but I think it's important that, maybe sometime to be able to just take a tour through these places and really see it for yourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're totally open to that if that's where the client wants us to focus our time. And I think that it 100% makes a difference when you're in person and taking a look. I do think though that it's important to feel comfortable with the level of analysis and detail. So what we want to do for the quantitative piece of this first phase is to say, here's how much housing could come from more population growth. Here's how much housing could come if people weren't doubled and triple up in a one unit. And then here's a proxy of the housing that is in the community that needs rehab. And we usually look at housing that's built, earlier than a certain date, maybe the 1960s, 1950s, just to give you a planning number of how many units would need rehab, as opposed to spending, the intensive time and cost to go and do a per unit evaluation of which units are ready to come down and be replaced. But, and then from there, you have kind of a target number of units within your community that probably do need to be replaced or substantially rehabbed. But yes, 100% agree. Coming and taking a look is always a good thing to be able to do.
And I'd like to interject that they did originally propose to do on-site meetings and of that nature, but we felt to get it past the assembly, we had to take some things out of the contract.
Oh,
And as you know, we barely were able to get that passed to the assembly. So what we decided was with Zoom and with their past experience in the community where they were on the ground here and, had been around and looked at everything and did a pretty detailed report in the 2016 comp plan that hopefully we can, people here in this room can give them enough of an update of what the on the ground situation is that they can pull together a more detailed and up-to-date report than what the comp plan provided. So that's kind of where that one ended up at.
Bare bones.
Yeah, well, we can, it's,
I get it.
yeah, so that's my concern, that if we're gonna do a survey in town, that we make sure that we get, as, we're gonna have to publicize it, it's gonna be part of our job to make for sure we get as many people to participate in that survey so that they can get the numbers.
Get it accurate.
And then we come up with, a list of people that we think they should talk to outside of ourselves, of course. So we're gonna have to do part of that type of legwork ourselves if we want to have a good result from this study. I mean, that's my feeling at least.
yeah, no, that sounds great. And I'm an open book, so I'm more than happy to work with y'all.
Thank you.
You guys got any other questions? Guys wanna, anything else?
I think that's all we had. Okay, did you have anything else that you wanted to add? Or did I miss saying or?
I think the only thing I was going to add is on that last point. I think what we've seen is, whether it's the more intensive door-to-door version or not, that it really does help survey response rates when it's local folks and organizations reaching out. So just hopefully that's It will obviously be a little bit of work, but also I think we've seen that really pay off, and we can do a lot of the back end in terms of teeing up the survey and drafting communications and helping to organize things. But yeah, just wanted to say that we've seen a lot of good come out of the input of time on the survey front. So hopefully it'll feel that way when you all get started on it.
And will the survey be online and in print both, or how do you foresee that happening?
Yeah, we will always have an online version, and then I think would talk through, I'm assuming there would be a paper version. The only piece on the paper version we'd want to talk through is just on the data entry and kind of consistency of once those paper surveys are collected, how do they not get lost in transition? But typically, yeah, we would pair an online and a paper option, but that's something we could definitely talk through as part of the project planning.
And we'll go back to our team that worked on the survey for the comp plan and see what their experience was with paper and online. But you know, it's really best if it's an online, and the more people that can access it that way. But if there's a certain group that we know we need the papers for, there's always going to be a way to make that happen.
Yeah, I know I have several friends that are very adverse to using anything electronic. So-
Yeah, yeah. Totally.
Well,
All right,
guess-
great. We're excited to
yeah,
get
well, thanks
started.
a lot.
Yep. Thanks
thank
for
you.
having
I
us.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
letting us listen to the earlier presentation too. So.
Yeah, so guys, I'm gonna be in and out of my mom's down in Dallas for the next month or so. So I think we'll just let everything ride. I mean, if there's somebody sees a need for a meeting or work session, I can participate via Zoom. What's your guys' pleasure?
What's the schedule for, is Ashley and are you guys making a presentation to the assembly?
My understanding, Ashley had asked for a March, like the first borough or the first assembly meeting in March. 6. Thank you. Yes. And
Okay.
that was, yeah. And then me and Annette had plans for the 23rd of this month to have another one. I think that's what I have in my calendar, but I'll double check with the ladies. And
Oh, you
also
mean
get back
a
to
work,
you.
a work session?
Yeah. just
Okay,
a work
and I'll
session.
try not to get goofed up when I hear that we're having a meeting at 6:20 in the morning and getting the dates and times all mixed up.
That's okay.
I,
I should have half an hour late.
Yeah.
Should have been 6.
She was like, what?
What? I know. Okay.
Do we have anything we need to address with the
Well,
assembly? I mean,
that's-
are we gonna,
That's a good question. I mean, I've talked, I talked to Joyce, the other day in the drugstore, about, fleshing out our 3 proposals. Maybe what we should do is we should see how this housing, I mean, we can do that. I think, but we have to get something to the point where the assembly
yeah,
is a little bit more definite in direction than what came out the last meeting. That wasn't quite what I had wanted to see. I hope that if they really just didn't like an idea, they just say no, and we could have not spent any more time on it. But everybody kind of said okay on everything, so, I don't know,
Well, I think
what's
we
your
can be
guys'
more-
feeling?
I think we can be more direct. I think, like with the lots
Right,
that we've looked at, and Carl had mentioned, if you can get them into the borough's budget, that so that their crews can get 1 or 2 lots ready, maybe not this year because they didn't have time to put it in this year's budget. But if they can budget it, or if he said he might have time to do 1 or 2 this year, get
Right.
those ready. Like that's something we could say, let's work on this now. That's a now kind of thing that can
Right.
happen. And then with the in delving into the land trust, it seems like what they were saying is that initial, like we might need some help from somebody if Rasmussen isn't willing to give us help like they did to them. to get the groundwork done on a lot.
Mhm.
So let's say we have one of these lots that Carl gets ready, and now we have water, sewer, and electrical to it. And then if the borough wants to try to get a land trust started or help get the people who want to be part of the land trust started, then we could ask the borough to borrow some money out of their housing fund, which when they sell property, I think there's $500,000 or $600,000 in there. Why can't they use that money to get the services into the house and prep that lot for a house?
Well, and I think that's what Mim, who worked with the Sitka Land Trust, had even said, is that she had hoped that the subsidies that they had gotten from the borough to start with would have been from the sale of a lot, which would make sense, because
Yeah.
if Carl's able to get 2 lots available, that's the sale of one, and then the other one could possibly be given into the land trust. So then you've got your lot to start there, but I mean, if the Rasmussen Foundation, they do have tier 1 grants open, which is like what she had talked about. But that's a whole nother workload there. So it would just be interesting to see how quickly the lots would be available compared to getting a grant written and having it either way. So.
But I think we need to give them more direction than we did and just say, this is what we'd like to see you guys do. Use some of this money that you already have from selling these lots you've already sold. That money's just sitting there, has been for years. Why don't you call it a subsidy or whatever you want to call it, give the trust that piece of property, prep the foundation. And now, from now on, that's it. You're done as far as what you've subsidized. But that will then, like they said, that one-time thing just perpetuates, it gets handed down to the next person, next person, next person.
Well, I
But that would be
agree.
some real direction.
Yeah, that's real. I don't know if we're quite to that point yet or not.
No, we have to have somebody willing to
Yes.
run the trust.
Yeah, we had first, yeah, I mean, the land trust is a great idea. I just don't know whether there's enough bandwidth in the community to pull it off.
I know.
I mean, if there's enough people in town that have, I mean, you know what it's like here trying to get people to do things. Yeah. So I won't say any more. Yeah, no, I mean, let's see, Sarah, what else are you? Let's see, you're the school board. How many hats do you wear?
I equate it with Little League.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
There's
that's,
6 people that coach until their kids are done and then they're gone. And
Yeah.
nobody else helps at all.
yeah, no.
That's true.
So I mean, if we can get the land trust going, I think that would be exciting. I mean, I think that's a long-term solution to, like she described, the middle part of the equation. I don't think we have any problem on the upper end because there's lots of lots, I mean, Pat Weaver's got a whole bunch of them for sale. There's another new subdivision I heard a rumor of going in. There's a ton of lots out the road, so I don't really think, I mean,
But they are upscale.
I understand that, but the
Yeah.
people that can afford to build a house have money. I mean, they seem to be pulling that off, it's the,
The new subdivision, like the smallest lots are 2.8 acres.
yes,
So that's big.
yeah.
So anyways, yeah, but I know what you're saying. I mean, there are some lots to pick at, but none where the water and the sewer go right to the property line.
Right.
Which I feel like anywhere we develop is going to be an issue. I mean, it's either going to be a borough cost or a buyer cost, and no matter what. But it's disheartening when there are lots like we talked about with Lake Street in the middle of town where the biggest issue is water and sewer. But I mean, it's got to be developed somehow, so it just depends on who wants to do it.
Yeah, private enterprise is not turned on with land developing right now because it's just too expensive.
Yeah. Agreed.
So it's a tough environment.
I would be inclined to say sell off even lots that don't have access to that because just like people bought out on Frederick Point East, they bought it speculating that something will happen eventually and
Mhm.
it will outlive all of us. You've got, and it doesn't have to have any restrictions on who buys it. So then you're building the coffers of the borough in order to go and put in infrastructure in lots that make more sense, at least temporarily. That's, I don't know, I guess the capitalist in me says, put them all up for sale. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, give us the money so then we can
Or
put the
up a
water and
lot
sewer.
of them. Why are we sitting on them?
Basically, though, they are all up for sale right now.
They could be.
All you have to do is go petition the borough to sell
But I
their
think a lot of
lot.
people don't, I mean, I think it's becoming more aware, but I've said that to people that have called me and they're like, I can.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you can, because they couldn't find anything
And that's
in the
what led-
private sector.
Because that's what led to those two being sold last year. was,
Right.
You know, people looking for a
Out-of-town
place to
people
live.
wanting to move here.
Yeah.
But it's
And then-
also
and then
looking-
They petitioned and then they put them up for sale and they just went crazy on the price, but
But I think looking at why people haven't done that already is, again, the financial issue is it's expensive just to go, oh, I want to petition and buy a lot in the middle of nowhere because I already have a home somewhere else as well too. And I guess, I mean, I could see that deterring people who've never lived here before in their life coming up and going, oh, I want that lot, even though it has no utilities, no access, it doesn't matter. Eventually it could be, but that doesn't help me right now kind of thing,
then,
yeah.
and then once you ask the borough to put it up and they do, now it's up to open auction to everybody.
Yeah, which,
So that just drives,
And you have to pay $500 to apply
yeah.
to
Right.
purchase it, and it's
And you're not
non-refundable.
Gonna be the one that ends up getting it.
Not
sometimes.
always, that's right.
So you've helped someone else avoid that $500.
and that's just getting the lot. It's not even
Well, I
putting
mean,
anything
that's an
else.
easy suggestion right there that we waive the $500 fee. I mean, if the borough wants to sell land, we got lots of land. I mean, we could even just say, I mean,
But we've talked about how
Yeah.
you'd have to restructure the way it sells. because
right,
These bidding wars that doesn't produce affordable property.
well, and that's,
Some of it could subsidize the affordability, certain things that we're gonna leave it on the open, we're gonna put it out on the open market because the job is to make as much money off of those lots as possible, so we can turn around and subsidize a certain
other
section.
ones,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
where I would see it as a funding mechanism.
And then
Or other
and then
lots.
put restrictions on those.
Those,
ones.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
So then
like
you're
the-
funding your,
Yeah, I get it.
you know, and I'd like to
subsidy.
see more work done trying to identify like where we could put in a manufactured house area. I mean, those are, I mean, so I guess what I'm hearing from you guys is that right away, we should try and put a marker in the budget to have Carl look at several lots that could be possibly developed by the borough this summer with,
Or bid out to.
or bid out,
local
yeah.
contractors.
And then our other proposals, the land trust, we got a lot of information there tonight. I mean, it's more scary than I thought. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I just, like I said, I don't know whether the community has enough bandwidth to pull it off. I mean,
I think it's gonna take somebody or some two people or whatever
right,
to say, I'm willing to run this. That's what it's gonna take,
right,
just like Mim and
Randy.
without them, it wouldn't exist.
Yeah, no, that definitely without, yeah, both
Yeah.
of those guys have,
And a lot of non-paid hours.
yeah, a lot of non-paid hours, but I think realistically, and there are grants available to, and what I heard them say was, we might be able to get an initial grant from Rasmussen to get this up and off the ground, like for maybe the first X number of places, but they're not going to be it's not going to be the pot of money that we're going to be able to go after, time and time again. But,
which goes back to, like you talked about, Sitka doesn't have any more land. They're very land restricted,
have
where
it.
I still kind of go back to how do we fund these things that we want to do in the community? And to me, I see it as, well, then sell other lots to fund the special, the specific projects that help a certain population that can't afford something else. I don't know.
Well, that makes sense, yeah, if you're selling lots off to people who can afford them and using that money to build that,
Subsidize it.
yeah,
Land trust.
yeah, exactly, turn around and use that money for development of other properties
Salary.
for the, yeah, exactly.
well, and the borough's hopefully, we're gonna get title. Well, who knows, because we're dealing with DNR. to quite a bit of recreational property over in Thomas Bay that's already subdivided. You know, I mean, there's quite a few lots there. I don't know if you've been following the land that we got under borough formation, but that'd be an excellent thing to sell, make money on, and then use it to subsidize developing property here in town. You know, because I mean,
Especially with that, because you're buying that knowing there's not gonna be sewer, water. or
right,
electric.
yeah, right, yeah. Yeah,
You're
it's
buying it
like,
because you want it.
yeah, it's like where I live out in Keene Channel. I never expect the borough to provide water or anything. You know, no, I mean, I've been there 40 years. I'll just be happy if there's a dock I can tie up to. Okay, so I mean, work sessions are easier. I mean, they're a lot looser in terms of, I mean, but when we get to a point where we have specific recommendations that we want to take to the assembly, then we need to have a formal meeting and vote on it and do that. So
That would be best after a month or so, you said?
I don't know, we can do it. We can,
Well, if you're gonna be,
I'm gonna be gone, but I mean, there's nothing to say that, we can't work on it in the interim. I mean, if, you know, like, I mean, Sarah, if you want to start a working group on developing a manufactured home area, you know, and find out who's interested on the board or even outside of it, you know, then, I mean, I think what we have to do is we do like Gary says, we need to be specific. Okay, let's try and put in the budget development money for a couple lots. Then we need to decide, are we gonna make these lots low income, like have requirements on them? You know, we can do that, but that's gonna require, you know, an ordinance to do that. And that's 3 readings. So, you know, you gotta kind of plan out how we want to do this, because, you know, anytime you deal with the borough, there's a process. You know, fortunately or unfortunately. So, you know, do we want to just direct Carl to develop 2 or 3 lots, put enough money in the budget? Say $100,000 is a round number, you know, to bring sewer and water to these lots? And then do we want to turn them around and sell them for the development costs? And do we want to put restrictions on that they're just for first-time home buyers or people that are in the 80 to 120% of income range? You know, what do we want to do? Those are the questions we got to get specific about. You know, if we're going to take them to Donna and me and have us say yea or nay on them.
that might even come down to having public input. I mean,
Well, that's what you got an elected assembly for, and that's also what we have this advisory. This is input, and trust me, if people don't like the idea, they'll show up and holler about it. And then the other thing, you know, like if you're gonna look at a mobile home, excuse me, a manufactured home area, you know, you're gonna have to have a zoning change for that, and that's gonna have to go through planning and zoning. And that's a big process, you know, there's definitely lots of opportunities for public input in that as well. And trust me,
get that mapped out.
you know,
Just make it drop. Lot sizes that minimum that you would need and present that and say,
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's what we-
do we need to do to make this happen? Let's do it.
okay, well, how do we get from what we're talking about now to that point that we can present it to the assembly? That's my question. You know, I think the land trust, Joyce is willing to work on that. She just couldn't come tonight because she had to wrestle her grandkids. You know, and, you know, I mean, so we can, let's, if you come up with some ideas, let's put it down on paper, and if you send it to Debbie, then Debbie can share it with the rest of the advisory members. You know, whatever your ideas are, and then I think that's where we need to do. We need to try and get more specific in our ideas.
Is it all right if we work without having to be here in a work session, we can get together and on our own out there and go with a tape measure and
I'm gonna defer to
draw
Debbie.
things up, or do we have certain rules we have to follow?
Because you're a task force, I think that yes, you can do things outside of this room to gather information, you know, to get together. You're not making decisions, you're just gathering info and trying to put something together to bring to the group. So yeah, I think it's all right. Erin did, she said that her phone is dying. She's typing a message here. She says, I think the housing assessment will help guide us on how to deal with any plots that have been developed or will be developed. And I was gonna say that that was kind of what I heard from the assembly as well, was they want to see that housing assessment. So I think maybe everybody should just take their time in developing ideas thoroughly before coming back to the assembly at this point, since it's gonna be a little while for the assessment.
That's kind of my feeling too. I mean, I was all ready to get this done and over with and get moving, but government doesn't work that way.
I was gonna say, it doesn't work that
I know, I
way.
understand. You know, but I think what we need to do is like the ideas like you're constantly coming up with, Gary, maybe put them down on paper and send them around. And, you know, we can hit off of them, and I'll try and do the same, and then, you know, and I think it'd be really good if we could do some ground search on, you know, and Sarah, you probably got the most expertise on that, like where a good place to put a manufactured home park.
Yeah, there was the one lot or the big, it hasn't been surveyed for, I don't know how long, but I was going to actually talk to a couple of the surveyors in town and just say, can you give me a ballpark number on what it would cost to survey this out and develop? You know, they would have to help me or help determine how many of those lots, because you gotta put a road in and
Right,
those kind of things, and then just go to one or both of our larger infrastructure developers in the private sector, just to get an idea of what it would cost to bring water and sewer from where it stops at the borough and to the private, you know, to stub out right at each lot. I mean, just so we have some working knowledge of
we have,
what are we looking at.
Carl got quite a few numbers from P&D when they evaluated, you know, a bunch of the places we talked about earlier. I mean, so they have a rough idea how much it costs to lay so many feet of water pipe, sewer pipe, that sort of stuff. So those numbers are kind of out there. I think Gary pointed out that he felt the estimates that came back from P&D were kind of inflated. I think that's
Yeah,
an
that's why I was kind of
understatement.
curious what the difference between local versus
Yeah, that's
the
right.
estimate of Juneau.
Right.
I'm all with Sarah, I would
Yeah,
go
I-
talk to our
Yeah,
friends
I
and
like
say,
that too, yeah,
how much do you think you could do that for?
Right.
Because
yeah,
they won't have this other person tell them, oh, that's cost 2 million.
right,
You know?
yeah, no, I understand.
I
Understand.
think you get a way better
I
cost,
would certainly wouldn't hold them to it, but
No,
it's like,
no.
can you at least
a rough
look at the
idea.
project and give me, you know,
No, my-
a
my-
ballpark.
Because they're doing that all the time.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, so let's just try and percolate the ideas and we'll regroup and
I was fascinated by the fact that those lots in Sitka are very small.
Yeah, I mean,
And you
yeah, I was-
don't park in front of your house? Did I
Yeah.
understand that correctly? So
Yeah.
you're
Yes.
walking from the parking lot over to your house.
but you gotta realize there's absolutely zero land in Sitka. I mean, land is at a premium
Be as
there.
efficient as possible.
Yeah. But the good thing about having a tight development like that is it's a lot cheaper to put in a road and to put in power and sewer, you know, I mean, when if you're running a road to standard lot sizes, it's gonna be a lot more expensive than, you know, if you have a smaller, you know, maybe we could just make long skinny lots.
Well, that's why,
Homes here in town are on 3,000 square lots.
Yeah, right.
We've got the homes on those tiny
Yeah,
little lots. It's
that's
not
why I
unheard
was-
of.
asking her how big those were was because,
And they
you know,
have one
those are
lot.
basically 40 by 80.
Right,
And, you know, like a standard lot in Severson's or whatever is 80 by 100. So you're looking at getting two of those houses on one of our lots. So if the
Right.
borough was to give us a lot, to start out at CLT, that lot would be worth not just one house, but two.
right.
So, you know, and the same with putting in manufactured home. You're not gonna have-
100,
no,
but That's what
no,
I envisioned.
no.
just
Well, that's the
something
type
that I
of
could look at.
specificity that we need to have in a proposal. We need to say, okay, we want to put in, we want to plan for X number of units, X number of lot size, whether it's the housing trust concept or whether it's, you know, building manufactured home area. My only experience I can caution you on a manufactured home is make sure it's isolated away from, because you'll get a lot of pushback if it's an area adjacent to an existing residential development. You don't think so?
I
I'm sure
like
we'll get
manufactured
Well,
homes.
yeah,
They're not like they were 30 years
I
ago. That's all
understand
I
that,
can
but,
say.
that's the only thing I can.
No, I totally
I
understand.
agree. No, I mean, yeah, and if you want to see a good example of them, go out to the hatchery. I was out there, Sunday, when Robert Venables was in town, and we went out there and, they have a couple, modular or manufactured homes out there. You
I
know.
live in the oldest one.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Ooh, I forgot all about that.
I follow this company in Texas that puts them up and I follow them on Facebook and every time I'm like, oh, that one's so pretty and oh, that one's so pretty. They're so cool.
So.
Just
There-
go to Palm
some-
Springs
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
and around all the beautiful manicured little manufactured mobile homes. They
And
keep
some of them more
they keep
efficient
'em-
than some of the older homes here in Petersburg that have no insulation. in
They
them.
keep them perfectly manicured and they're beautiful and everybody's happy and just go golf all day.
Put a golf in there.
We need to talk about putting a golf course.
Not that much land.